Hi, I'm Clark on Temptress. Today we're going to talk about how to fix a battery that's gone bad or get one ready for peak performance. We're going to talk about how to do cell balancing on a battery that's already assembled. I had this battery sent to me by a company asking me to do a review. It doesn't work well. Probably look at the draw. The cells just aren't what they need to be able to even really use the battery. And the internal balancing procedure, either I can't figure it out or it doesn't work. I'm not really doing a review on this video. I won't even mention the name of the company. But if you ever found yourself having a battery that is grossly out of balance, which this one is, and you can't even charge it properly, and once you see this video, you realize if you attempt to charge it properly, you will probably harm the cells over time. This would be how you can fix that. It's something you shouldn't need. If you had this battery shipped to you, you would ship it back to them. But as a battery ages, these things could happen. And, it's nice to know what you can do. The downside is, to do this, I'm going to have to pop the case open. So, that's the problem with these cases that are glued shut. Let's get into what's going on, what the symptoms are, and then how we're going to fix it. When we're done, I'm fully expecting this is going to be a nice, usable battery. Okay, this battery arrived. Just to get all the complaining out, it has this little vent. Look at that vent. If you're like me and you like to fiddle with things, you might twist it. Well, there's a nut on the bottom. Now that fell inside the case, I can't secure the vent. So when we're done, we'll put the nut back on it. We'll find it in there. I really wish they would have put a little bit of glue on the nut so that wouldn't have happened. But that's me fiddling with the battery. If you buy this battery, don't fiddle with that. So the problem with the battery. When the batteries arrive, they're about half charged. And I put my BankManager on them so I can charge them up to full. And then I have a whole procedure, and I have a lot of review videos. You can go through what I do if you're interested there. This didn't pass the first test. The BankManager could not finish charging this battery. It charged it, and when it got up to 13.7 volts, which it felt the battery wasn't fully charged yet, the battery itself shut off. Why that is a lithium iron phosphate battery of nominal 12 volts has 4 cells or groups of cells that are in parallel. And each one is a little over 3 volts, so we get a little over 12 volts. They have a working limit. And the idea is they should all be charged to exactly the same level so they all come up together. Because when you charge them, the voltage goes up very slowly. I'm going to try to make the little graph. And then when it gets to fully charged, it does this hockey stick, we call it, because it's got that shape. And they go up in voltage really fast. Now, if you had 3 batteries that were at 50% charge and one cell, I should have said cells, one cell pair or group that was at 80% charge, as soon as you put 20% in, the 80% batteries are going to go up into the hockey stick and their voltage is going to start rising. But the others are still down here in the flat area and they'll have a low voltage. All these batteries have what's called a BMS, and we'll see that later, but it's an electronic circuit inside. And its main job, its main reason for existing, is to watch all the cell voltages of all the groups of cells. And if any of them get out of spec, to shut down the battery, because if you try to charge too far, you will immediately destroy these cells. So what we have here is a situation where one set of cells is coming up to voltage faster. That's all we really know now. It's probably because the cells are just not set up at the same state of charge, but it could be that these cells are actually not functioning as well and they have a lower capacity. So of course, if these were 100 amp, 80 amp, 100 amp, 100 amp, the 80 amp would charge first and discharge first. I'm really hoping that's not the case because then I really won't have a video. But we're gonna at least get them top balanced and then we're gonna play with it and figure it out. How do I know they're out of balance? I haven't opened the case yet. How do I know it? Well, the first way I know it is because the battery shut off at a very low voltage. It shut off at 13.7 volts. The only reason it shuts off is because one of the cell groups is too high, so I know that it's out of balance. By rights, and there's certain little variability in this. Sometimes the BMSs are set for different numbers, but most of the time, a perfectly balanced battery, if you charge it hard and keep it going and keep going, it'll shut itself down at 14.6 volts. Well, that's a long way from 13.7. The other way I know is this battery has about every bell and whistle you can imagine. It has a BMS that is a Bluetooth radio. So I can use my phone with their app, and the BMS in there actually tells my phone the individual voltages of all the cells. So I get to see what's going on. Now, if you know about BMSs or you've read about BMSs, you know that one of their jobs is to balance the cells. And I gave this every opportunity to balance. Unless it has a secret formula of how to turn on the balance, it should have done something. I hooked this to my regulated power supply, and I repeatedly discharged and recharged it near the top. I also held it at just below where it would shut off, which isn't particularly healthy for that higher cell, but you know, I wanted to give it every opportunity, and honestly, I didn't want to have to open the case. So I held it for 5 days at 13.687, just below anyway, whatever the magic number was. And I carefully watched the difference between the high voltage cells and the lower voltage cells. And I wasn't seeing any change. It should be discharging the highs so that the lows have a chance to come up, and it just wasn't happening. And my God, 5 days, if it's not going to fix it, in 5 24-hour days, it probably isn't going to fix it. One more thing we're going to do with this battery today, I fully expect, because I've lost confidence with that BMS being able to balance. And you know what? Most of these BMSs you find in the budget batteries don't balance very fast. They're what's called a passive balancer. We're going to install an active balancer. I mean, I had the case open, I might as well. So we're going to go into this particular device. I've had some good luck with this. They are crazy inexpensive. They have upsides and downsides, as almost everything coming out of production nowadays have. But if you understand them, I think that this can be a very useful deal. And when I say crazy cheap, I think they're like $6. So I have done everything that I feel and I can come up with to diagnose and fix this from the outside. All the really interesting stuff is on the inside, so we're going to dive into this battery and we're going to figure out what's going on. To do that, I have to crack it open. I usually show that on video, but today I'm not because it's a crappy day outside, so it'll just magically be open in a second. Well, these things put up a battle. This one put up a particular battle, hence the change of shirt. But it's open. And look what we've got. We got a lot going on. You know, I hope I can get this one going, because this battery has like every bell, every whistle, internal heating, everything. It's a pretty expensive battery. And honestly, it doesn't look like they cut a lot of corners. I'm impressed with this anti-chafe, I assume, tape over all the wires. There's a lot going on that honestly, at first glance, I don't even know what it is. There's boards all over the place, but we'll figure it all out. Now, our goal here is to get to the terminals that are on this side of the battery somehow. And then we're going to be able to analyze these individual 100 amp hour cells, find out which one's out of whack, and force it into whack with pretty simple electrical tools, a resistor and a couple pieces of wire. But before I show you my trick, I got to make this safe. So I'm going to tear down the big power wires. Mostly once I remove this one, then there won't be a big negative, and everything is safe to touch. If you take a battery apart, you notice my watch is off now. No metal on you, no wedding rings that aren't, you know, ours are safe. Here I go. Well, this was a bigger challenge than I thought it was going to be. Wet shirt again, but this time it's because I got rained on. I dug and dug and dug, and I finally just had to cut the end of the case off because we need to get to the tops of the cells. So there's a little plastic cover on them now, and I'm going to very carefully cut that off because metal tools in here can be real bad. Let's see what we find. So these are the tops of the cells. There's 4 cells, 4 100 amp hour cells, and this would be the negative of the lowest cell, the positive, which is, they're in series, so this is connected to the negative of the next cell, that's its positive, to the negative of the next, that's its positive, negative of the next, and then finally the positive that leaves the battery. Let's see what we find. We're not going to find a lot right now, but we're going to learn. 13.26. That's a good number for a fully charged lithium. Let's look at all the cells now. This cell is 3.312. Now I'm reversing the probe, so forget the negative sign. 312. 314 and 312. So I'm off by 2/100ths of a volt. What's the big deal, Clark? There is no big deal. When the batteries are in their level voltage area, it doesn't really matter if they're like 10% more charged or not. They're going to have kind of the same voltage. To really see what's going on, we have to keep pushing them until some of the cells start going up that ramp. So we're going to put a charger on it, and we're going to watch the cell voltages and see what happens. Okay, I got the charge going, and I have to watch this now. I have to really carefully watch this. In fact, occasionally I'm going to move my meter and look at the individual cells and keep an eye on this. I'm not going to bore you with the whole time, but I'm probably going to spend half hour, 20 minutes getting this battery fully charged again so the cells started going out of whack. I'm bypassing the BMS. And because I'm bypassing the BMS, there's no guy over here that's watching for one cell going too high. So if I walk away, I could cause a cell to vent. So if you do this yourself, remember, you're in charge now. But the first step is to get all the cells charged up until that one cell starts going up too much. I'll see you in just a bit. Well, been doing this for a little while. I've been watching what's going on. But to recap, I've got my charger coming in between these 2 poles. So the current I'm putting in goes through the whole circuit, is charging all the batteries evenly. Current is always the same everywhere in the circuit. It's like the water flowing through pipes. And then I've been peeking at each individual cell and getting its voltage. Now, I'll take you through what we found. So we look at the first cell, and we get 3 381,000ths of a volt. Go to the next cell, that would be this one, 3 369,000ths of a volt. Really close. Go to the next cell, and we have 3 366,000ths of a volt. Real close. Then we go to this last cell, and we have 3 609,000ths of a volt. And that's not even at full. We're going to take it up. But you see how this cell is significantly higher. It's like at least 251,000ths of a volt more. Now, if it was 100,000ths of a volt, tenth of a volt, I wouldn't worry about it. 2, it probably should be addressed. We would hope that the BMS can get that in check. But when they're like 301,000ths, 3/10ths of a volt out of whack, you can't even really properly charge the whole bank. These guys aren't getting fully charged. This guy is getting dangerously charged every cycle. So what we need to do is bring them all into the same level. Now I could turn the charger back on. In fact, I will a little bit here. And we'll put a little more power in, and we'll see that this one goes up real fast. Is that voltage flying right up? I'm not going to let it go too high. In fact, that's it. I'm shutting it off. I get nervous. It really only should go to 3 and 650 1,000ths. But if we looked at all these others, they just didn't go up much. So we got this guy with too much power in it. So how would we balance these cells? If we were building this battery and we had all of our cells separate, we would balance it, but we'd do it in a different way. So this is how you'll find it written up and described in other places. You take all the cells, you put them in parallel, all the positives together, all the negatives together, and then while they're all ganged together, you charge them all up to the top and kind of hold them up there for a while and let them all balance with each other. And that is a fine way to do it. But this battery is already welded up in series, and I mean welded. There's no bolts. I would have to cut all these jumpers, and I'm not going to do that. So what can I do now? Well, I can do one of two things. If I had one cell that was lower than all the rest, I could use my bench power supply, and I could put current just into that one cell and bring it up until they're all even. But what we've got is 3 cells that are at one level and 1 cell that is at a higher level. So we could bring up all 3 of the others, but the easiest thing to do is to take power out of the one that's high. And that can be done actually very easily. Let me hook my meter up to this cell again so we can see that it is still 3.6. And I'll take a quick little jump over at a neighboring cell so we remember, because I've forgotten. Our target is around 3.361. So we can lower the power that is in this cell by burning it. And I'm going to use my little alligator clips here and set up a little circuit, real simple. This is a 2 ohm power resistor. And we're going to run power through this. I'll get this going. And the thing is, it's going to turn the power into heat, because that's what happens, and heat is heat. So I have a little bowl. I didn't know what to do. I mean, what I would normally do is just run it for a while and then let it cool down, or maybe grab another resistor and run it for a while. But it's a video. I wanted to go faster. So I put a little bowl with some water and a paper towel. We're going to see how this works. Okay, so we're watching the voltage. It's 3.623. And then I'm going to clamp on here and burn some energy into heat. And you can see the voltage is going down. Okay, this is going to take a little while. We've got to burn all this energy out of this guy so that these guys can come up. Okay, we're there. We've got that cell down to 3.343. And I'm going to go through them now. 3.340, real close. Take a quick peek at the others again. These were just a little higher, 3.46 and 3.54. So we're going to charge it all up again. Get back up there close to the top end of what the cells, but now we can go higher because we took the one down, so now they can all come up as a group. So back to my charger. And I will keep an eye on all the cells and move around, but this is the one we're most concerned with. So we'll let this come up. And I will come back to you when the cell is up near its peak voltage and see if we need to do this again. We may. Well, I've done that. I charged them all until this cell came up to 365. I shut it right down quick and started talking because you don't want to go over 3.65. Did a look through everything. When that's at 365, this is now at 437. So that brings us 200 1,000ths, 0.2 of a volt. Getting better. Checking this one, 354. So this one's a little low compared to this. And I noticed along the way that this cell over here is the next worst one. So we've got this at 361, and then we have our lead cell after modification at 363. So I'm going to bring this one down and this one down this cycle. And I'm not going to bore you with this. I'm just going to keep repeating this until I get them all really, really close when they're fully charged. I'll check back with you when they're all nice and balanced, and then we're going to do some other checks. Well, I've spent about 2 hours. This is not a fast process. But what I've done is using only a resistor, 2 jumper wires, a multimeter, and a charging source. I have charged the battery up repeatedly and then discharged the cells that were high. I don't recommend you charge directly unless you really know your bench power supply and it works out. You can charge right through the system's BMS, and then that will protect you from going a little crazy. But let's see what we've got. I've got my power supply holding me up at pretty high voltage. Okay, the highest cell, the one that was too high before, but it is the most positive cell, is 3.640 volts. The next cell down is 3.597. Then we have 3.626, and finally 3.630. Sorry, it's 3.633. It takes a little while for a meter to settle in that really little range. So the highest is 3.64. I have the charger running, so they're all going up very slightly. And the lowest is 595. So we're within 41,000ths of a volt. We were 300 1,000ths of a volt before. This is now a perfectly healthy battery. It's all balanced nicely, and we have done this. It meant I had to cut the case apart. It meant I had to spend 2 hours of my time. Is it worth it? Well, if it's an old battery I've had for a while and it went out of balance and this was like periodic maintenance, sure, saves you a bunch of money. If this is something you just bought, send it back. Do not accept batteries that are this far out of whack. Now, wouldn't it be great if there could be this device inside the battery that would just do this for us? There should be. It's the BMS. This guy's BMS just refused to do the job. But even if you had the passive balancer, that's the word for it, that they have in here, which works exactly like we did, except the resistor is itty tiny and takes forever. It would take forever. There's also this. Now this video is run long, so I'm not going to get into this in this video. We'll make another video on this. But this is an active balancer. And what it is 3 isolated power supplies, 3 switching power supplies. Little tiny versions of like what I did in that video where I showed you how to power your laptop off 12 volts. Similar to that, but they're very customized chips that are designed to do just exactly this job. And there's 3 of them. So one sits between cell 1 and 2, one sits between cell 2 and 3, and the final one sets, of course, between 3 and 4. Now, it can only see the adjacent cells, but if this cell has too high of a voltage, this will move the power into here. So they all can get within whack. Now, this little guy's got some issues, and you got to treat him kindly, and he's got limitations, and we'll go into all that. But if used right, these can be a really good idea. I'm pretty convinced. Anyway, we'll get back into this later. This is what's involved in balancing the cells of a battery. It can be done by most anyone with very simple tools that I imagine you already have. It's a bit of a challenge, just in that if you do something wrong, it can go very, very wrong. This was, for some people, to show you how to do it. For some people, this is just to show how it is done if you were to have it done or to know what's involved. Why I say that is I have to give you one big word of warning. I've been working very close between here and here. Well, there's a lot of electrical difference between, and they're backed up by 2 100 amp hour batteries. It's half the whole battery. If I made a contact that wasn't my high resistance flesh, if I were to connect, drop a tool, put this little spade or this little alligator clip, just bump it, bad things would happen really fast. So this is not for the faint of heart. I just want to warn you. If you burn yourself up, don't come crying to me. Anyway, that's the video on how to balance out the cells of a battery, or at least what's involved in it. I hope you found it interesting. I had to butcher this battery very badly to do it, but now I've got a good battery again, except I don't have a case. Thing was, this battery was useless to me. There was no shipping it back because I'm in the Dominican Republic and it would cost more to ship it there than it's worth. So I thought maybe we could all enjoy seeing what's going on. I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye from Clark on Tester.